This video has been brought to you by Infinity Kingdom. Infinity Kingdom is a cartoon-style MMO strategy game, while brave alchemists summon immortals and legends from history to help players prevent the gnomes from taking an ancient energy source, the World Heart. You'll be able to train and use your own dragon. Dragons come with 7 different elements, and each army formation can be supported by a different one. Hatch them from dragon eggs and start raising them up to become the ultimate source of power for your immortals and kingdom. By going through city sieges, you can occupy as many cities as possible in order to grow a strong kingdom and reach the ultimate goal, conquering the World Heart and choosing the king of the entire land. Participate in the Contention of Legends event by downloading the game and joining the UK and US influencers in the Idvia Kingdom. Help them in their fight against Hong Kong and Taiwan influencers in Vitas and South Korean influencers in Ruslan by occupying cities and conquering the World Heart. Players who didn't log in for 7 days will get a special and unique speed-up buff if they return to Infinity Kingdom. Download the game and join Idvia's fight against Ruslan. You won't regret it. Did the US Marines serve in Europe in World War II? There were US Marines operating in Europe during World War II. In fact, quite a significant number of them were aboard US warships in the Atlantic and Mediterranean throughout the war, as well as large numbers deployed protecting American naval and diplomatic sites in the region, but far less compared to the hundreds of thousands that were involved in the many bloody island assaults of the Pacific Campaign against Imperial Japan. At first, the U.S. Marine security detachments in Europe were assigned to protect U.S. naval bases in the United Kingdom, so they were not involved directly in combat. But with the setting up of the intelligence agency, the Office of Strategic Services, this all started to change. As the war progressed, U.S. Marines started to assist the OSS covert operations in Nazi-held Europe in increasing numbers. At least 50 of them served as intelligence agents and saboteurs for the OSS. Though their missions were highly classified, one Marine stood out from the rest, and that was Peter Pierre Julien Ortiz. He was born on August 5, 1913, in the United States of America, to a French-Spanish father and American mother, but was later educated in France at the University of Grenoble. In 1932, at the age of 19 and hungry for adventure, he joined the French Foreign Legion and over the course of the next 5 years rose through the ranks to become an acting lieutenant. Ortiz was offered a permanent commission as a second lieutenant if he agreed to re-enlist for another 5 years and consider eventual naturalization as a French citizen, but he declined this offer and returned to the United States. In his first tour with the Legion, Ortiz was awarded the Quadriguerre Medal with 2 palms, 1 gold star, 1 silver star, 5 citations during counterinsurgency operations in Morocco against some rebellious local Berber tribes. He also received the Croix de Combattant, the Wissam Alouette, and the Médaille Militaire. When the Second World War broke out in Europe, Ortiz re-enlisted in the Legion in October 1939 and later got battlefield commissions, initially to second lieutenant and then to first lieutenant. In June 1940, during the Battle of France, he was seriously wounded and captured by the Germans. This came about after he returned from a mission, only to find out that a fuel dump had not been destroyed as planned. He returned to the area on a motorbike, rode straight through the German lines, and successfully blew up the fuel dump. But on his way back, he was shot in the hip. As the bullet entered his body, it hit his spine and left him temporarily paralyzed, making it easy for the Germans to take him prisoner. He spent 15 months as a prisoner of war in a series of POW camps in Germany, Poland, and Austria. He attempted a number of escapes and finally succeeded in October 1941 when he boarded a ship in Lisbon, Portugal that was bound for the United States. He arrived there on December 8th and was interrogated by Army and Navy intelligence officers. He was in a poor physical condition and had to recuperate before being able to pass the physical examination. On June 22, 1942, he enlisted in the Marine Corps and was assigned to boot camp at Paris Island. With his past military experience and bearing and his positive attitude, his potential was soon recognized by his superior officers, and he was given a commission as second lieutenant. Ortiz was sent to Camp Lejeune as a training officer. He was then ordered to attend the Marine Parachute Training School. Though Ortiz had already completed numerous jumps with the Legion, he took the training in his stride. The Legion had its way, and the Marine Corps had the right way. "I never minded jumping," he said. Towards the end of 1942, Ortiz was posted to North Africa to assist with the upcoming Operation Torch. This was the American-British invasion of French North Africa, which was allied with Germany at the time. He so impressed his superiors with his actions that he was promoted to captain. Under the guise of an assistant naval attaché, which was only a cover, Ortiz took part in combat operations as well as reconnaissance and sabotage missions for the OSS. He was wounded again while carrying out combat intelligence work in preparation for this invasion. He and his patrol encountered an enemy patrol, and as a result of the firefight that ensued, in which Ortiz managed to drive them back with hand grenades, he was badly wounded in the right hand. Ortiz was evacuated back to the USA to recuperate. In 1943, when he was fully recovered, he came to the attention of the Office of Strategic Services Intelligence Agency, who were impressed that he spoke English, French, German, Spanish, and Arabic fluently, as well as several other languages. He became a full-time member of the OSS, and on January 6, 1944, he parachuted into France to aid the French resistance as a member of a three-man Allied squad initiating Operation Union 1. The other members of the unit were Colonel H.H.A. Thackwait, a prominent British undercover agent, and an experienced French radio operator named Monier. He liaised with local resistance groups and organized for them to be supplied with weapons, ammunition, and equipment. During this time, he also led several successful raids against the German occupation forces, taking great personal risk as he was wearing civilian clothing at the time. This meant that if he was captured, he would have been handed over to the Gestapo and shot as a spy. However, he did carry his uniform with him during combat operations. Ortiz sabotaged rail lines, stole military vehicles from German motor pools, ambushed enemy patrols, and in one particularly audacious operation, walked into a German-run jail pretending to be a Wehrmacht officer and spirited away several captured British airmen. He led this group of RAF pilots to the safety of the Spanish border. For all this, he was awarded the U.S. Navy Cross, the United States military's second highest decoration that's given for valor in combat. He was also promoted to the rank of major. Although the group should have remained hidden during the day in safe houses, Ortiz couldn't resist wandering around the French towns in the late evenings. Apparently, he walked into a cafe wearing a long cape or raincoat over his uniform. Being fluent in German, he was able to understand a drunken group of German officers talking and cursing about him and the resistance, and what they would do to him if they caught him. Ortiz stood up, revealing his Marine uniform to them, and pulled out a couple of .45 automatic pistols. One version of the story says he made the German officers raise a toast to President Roosevelt and to the Marine Corps before the gunfire started, and some of the officers were shot down before Ortiz made his escape and vanished into the night. Another version says Ortiz didn't shoot anyone, leaving them alive to boost his legendary status and further erode German morale. As the Germans and the Vichy French offered increasingly higher rewards for their capture, Ortiz and Thackwait were withdrawn from operations in May 1944. Ortiz returned to France on August 1st of 1944 as the head of Operation Union 2, where he continued to assist the local resistance groups in the area and continued to lead raids against the German forces. He was given command of a team that comprised 5 other Marines, Gunnery Sergeant Robert LaSalle and Sergeants John P. Bodnar, Frederick J. Bruner, Charles E. Perry, and Jack R. Reisler. Joseph Arsalan, a Free French officer, and Captain Francis Coolidge of the U.S. Army Air Force. Unfortunately, Sergeant Perry was killed when his parachute failed to open. This operational group was a heavily armed contingent, which was tasked with conducting sabotage and seizing key installations to prevent the retreating German units from destroying them. They were always in uniform when operating behind enemy lines, and the Free French officer had carried false papers identifying him as a Marine. Ortiz and his group were discovered in the town of Centron by elements of the 157th Alpine Reserve Division and were quickly encircled on August 16th. A firefight ensued, with Ortiz and his men retreating from house to house until the French civilians implored them to stop and give themselves up so as to avoid reprisals on the town from the Germans if they had managed to escape. Ortiz and his men surrendered under the condition that the townspeople would not suffer any retribution from the Germans. They were incarcerated in the naval POW camp of Marlag und Millag, Nord, which was located in the small German village of Vestetimka, just outside of Bremen. Despite Ortiz being tortured and interrogated by the Gestapo, he revealed nothing. For this, he was awarded his second Navy Cross. His attempts to escape during the journey to the camp and later from the POW camp were unsuccessful. On April 10, 1945, the camp commandant ordered the POWs onto an enforced march out of the camp. In the confusion, some prisoners found hiding places in the camp itself. However, Ortiz was being watched, so he was included in the column. When the RAF attacked the column of moving Germans and POWs, Ortiz and several others managed to escape into the woods. They wandered for 10 days hoping to find the British lines. Since they were unsuccessful, they returned to the camp, where they found the remaining Allied prisoners had taken charge of the compound. And a few days later, his prisoner of war camp was liberated by the Allies on April 29, 1945. On top of his 2 Navy Crosses, he was awarded many other military medals, making Ortiz the most highly decorated member of the OSS by the end of the war. His other decorations included 2 U.S. Purple Heart medals, the French Legion of Honor, which is their highest award, and the British made him an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, more commonly referred to as an OBE. By now, he had risen to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, and he was released from active duty in 1946. And in March 1955, at the age of just 41 years old, he was placed on the Marine Retirement List as a full colonel, and thus ended his military career. After the war, he did some work in Hollywood as a military advisor, as well as performing in numerous movies. And though some of these movies became huge hits, like the John Wayne classic western Rio Grande and the popular comedy Abbott and Costello in the Foreign Legion, he only ever had small parts as an extra, and by his own admission, he said that he was a terrible actor, and it seemed more like a hobby to him than any type of career. 2 Hollywood movies were made about Ortiz's exploits during the Second World War, 13 Rue Madelon in 1947 and Operation Secret in 1952. Peter Ortiz died of cancer on May 16, 1988, at the age of 74. He was one of the few Marines to serve on the Western Front and showed great courage behind the enemy lines and a devotion to his duty.